Think really, really deeply about who are you, kind of what's at your core in terms of your values and what's important to you and what kind of work excites you. Number two, it's interesting, I kind of penned a letter to my 9-year-old daughter about just tips of advice for life, but number two is in this letter to her, which is, find something that you're passionate about, which it sounds like you've done. A lot of entrepreneurs and people that start up their own companies are driven to it because they find something that they're passionate about, and it's a unique niche or an insight that they can build a business around. But it doesn't have to be go start up a business. It could be, I was passionate about people, really, and teaching. And you could say, well, why didn't you wind up going into teaching? Well, I had a 3-month-old son, and I was worried I wouldn't, be able to give my family the kind of life. But I discovered as I was kind of going through the interviewing process at P&G how quickly you wind up managing people. And this promote from within culture really does put an onus on that first level line manager, a brand manager, 3.5 years with the company. All of a sudden you've got 3 or 4 or 5 people that are working for you, high-powered, talented kids coming out of business school, that your job is to coach them and train them and develop them and help them to become successful. And your success is dependent upon their success. I got that within, I wasn't even 30 years old when I was managing, Harvard MBA graduates. And that coaching and developing of people is something that is still really, really near and dear to my heart. I benefited from it early in my career, and then you hit a point in your career and you realize it's kind of pay it forward time or payback time. So find something that you're passionate about, because if you're passionate, I like to say passion's worth 10 index points, and it's kind of like the corollary is it's not work if you're having fun, right? So if you love it, you'll be good at it. I think the third thing, kind of related to the know yourself, is find the right fit. It's interesting if you think about it. I've worked at 3 places my entire adult life. U.S. Army, how long have that been around? 250 years or something? Somebody probably knows the answer. Call it 250 years. P&G, 185 years. Levi Strauss, 165 years. Right? Okay, so we can conclude I'm not a startup guy. But I do like to say that Levi's is the original Silicon Valley startup. And part of what I'm trying to bring back with that company is the startup mentality. But the point I was going to make there is the importance of really knowing what's important to me in terms of values. And I've worked for 3 companies, or 3 institutions really, that have incredibly strong values. And those values connect with me on a personal level. And they are very consistent with my own personal values. And I think part of the reason I stayed at P&G for 28 years was because I was afraid I would never find a place like P&G that had those kind of values. And I know I have never regretted any of the 3 places where I've worked, in part because I know all 3 places, and I like to say at Levi Strauss, we will do the harder right over the easier wrong. And that is something that I pound and pound again, is it's always better to do the harder right than the easier wrong. So I take no credit for this, okay, because it goes all the way back to our founder, Levi Strauss, the man himself, 165 years ago when he founded the company. The very first year when he made a profit, he gave a big part of that profit to a local orphanage here in San Francisco. And so he really founded the company on this premise of profits through principles, and that's how we like to talk about it. And it is very closely linked to doing the right thing, and this awareness that as a company is successful, it has a commitment to its stakeholders, its employees, its shareholders, but also the communities where it operates. And so through the decades, we have really tried to build on that. And you're right, the office of the CEO, this is not about me, but it is the responsibility of the office of the CEO at Levi Strauss. There is an obligation and a responsibility to make sure that the values of the company stay strong, but to also not be afraid to stick our neck out, stick my neck out, this is where it does get personal, to take a stand on issues, important matters of our day. And this company has a long track record of doing this. We desegregated our plants in the United States 10 years before it became national law. We were the first company to offer healthcare benefits to same-sex partners a long, long time ago. Today, if you saw it in the news, the Boy Scouts have changed their name, right? It's no longer the Boy Scouts, it's the Scouts. This company took a very strong, hardline stand when the Scouts banned gay troop leaders and said, we're pulling all of our funding. And the company took a lot of heat. Fast forward to current day, I have personally taken a strong stand because we were founded by an immigrant. Levi Strauss was an immigrant from Germany. So when the immigration ban happened in February of last year, we were the first company to stand up, or amongst the first to stand up to say this is wrong. We filed amicus briefs to support the battle in the courts, and it links back to our basic values around human rights. We've stood up for DACA, and the stories are heart-wrenching. We're taking a stand on the refugee crisis now and what's happening with limiting refugees' entrance to the United States. I think there are a lot of things happening, not to get political here, but there are a lot of things happening in this country that are anti what this country is all about. And we are one of the most American brands anybody can think of. So it's important, I think, for me as the CEO of this company and for us as a company to take a stand on important issues that really are inconsistent with the values of this company. We established that we were going to grow our profits, our top line, our revenue, and our bottom line, our profits, year in and year out, every year, in constant currency, no matter what. And we've now done it 5 years in a row. Okay, the first couple of years, it was modest growth. We kind of averaged between 2% and 3% growth the first couple of years, growing the bottom line a lot faster because we took out a lot of costs and restructured. But then last year, we kind of hit an inflection point, and we grew last year, our reported revenues grew 8%, and 7% in constant currency. So we did hit an inflection point. Fourth quarter, though, was double-digit growth, and then the first quarter of this fiscal year, which we just announced a couple of weeks ago, we grew 22%. And we are outperforming everybody in the industry. Our profits were up 59% in the first quarter. And so, and the brand is back. I mean, that's probably the most important thing. The Levi's brand arguably hasn't been this strong since the day my jeans were stolen out of that bathroom in Bergh, Norway. You see the Batwing tee everywhere you go now. That was a big part of getting this business turned around. But and the shareholders are happy. We're privately held. The Haas family, Haas Business School at Berkeley, you've heard of that? Same family. The Haas family is the main family ownership. The company was public for a period of time in the 70s, but the family bought it back private. They were concerned about it winding up in the wrong kind of hands because the company does generate a lot of cash, and it's been private ever since. And so the shareholders are happy because the stock has gone up. We still have stock. The stock gets valued by an investment bank 3 times a year. So the stock has done really well over the last couple of years. Their dividends have gone up pretty dramatically. It's all public because we've got publicly traded debt. But the dividends when I was there when I first arrived, was $20 million a year. This year we're doing $90 million. That's in a 6-year period, 5-year period of time. So the dividends are up almost 5x. Stock price has tripled in that same period of time. So they're happy. And employees, it was tough early on because there was a lot of heavy lifting. There was a lot of change, and I will tell you, there were a lot of skeptics, probably still are to some extent. You know, what's a Procter guy doing here running an apparel company? And in fact, there was an article in Fortune magazine after the first maybe 2 or 3 years after we had done Levi's Stadium. Like, I'm the crazy guy that did that too. And it was all part of putting the brand back at the center of culture. They did a Fortune story, and the headline was, I'm not an apparel guy, I'm a brand guy. And, but a big part of the job was making the brand great again, and that's really where I was able to bring some experience. I'm still learning apparel, I'm still learning retail, there's a lot to learn there, but the brand is back and we've got a lot of momentum right now, and my biggest worry now is that that people get complacent and think we've got it all figured out, because we don't. We've got a long way to go still. Still too early to declare success.